the word aqidah is extracted, taken out. Anybody recall?
Aqd.
From the word aqd. And aqd has a couple of meanings really that concern us. One of them is, what does aqd mean? The word aqidah is coming out of that word. In Arabic you have root words, you have words which are sources, yeah? And from them you bring out different words. So the word aqidah comes from the word aqd, and it has one meaning. It has is to tie a knot. Tie a knot. And you will notice when you tie a knot, what is it? Very strong. It doesn't come undone easily. Tight. Yeah? You tie a knot. What does aqd also mean? Somebody may have heard of the word aqd nikah. What does aqd mean there? Yeah? It means a contract. Aqd is a contract. Buying or selling, marrying, these are contracts. What's the nature of a contract? The reality of a contract is it binding. It binds. Once you made a contract, you're bound. Yep. You have to follow it through. You're locked inside it. Like a knot, isn't it? Tied up, tight. So if you look at the meanings there, aqidah is coming from that meaning. So the ulama of Islam said that aqidah is something the heart wraps around. Your heart, it wraps around it. Tight. Yep. This is an aqidah. This is a belief. Something your heart wraps around. Just like a knot tight, a contract, buying, selling. I said, I'm going to buy this from you. I'm going to pay this much for it. You said you agree that you're going to sell it to me for this much. We make the contract and agree. Binding now. Just like that belief that is in the heart. The heart wraps around that belief. This is an aqidah. We said this is in terms of language. That inside language, the word aqd has this meaning of contract, has the meaning of tying like a knot. Aqidah is from this, so aqidah means wrap around, your heart wrapping around a belief tightly. We said aqidah, when we talk about the sciences of Islam, different sciences. Yeah? One of those sciences is the science of Islamic belief. What does aqidah mean then? We said aqidah is the science, the knowledge. It's a knowledge. Science. What do we mean by the science? Knowledge. It's the knowledge of those matters that relate to the attributes of Allah, the sifat of Allah. We'll speak about that in a moment. Relate to the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Relate to the created beings. Who are the created beings? Many different things are created in the universe by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But in Aqidah specifically we talk about the prophets, Anbiya alayhim salam. The prophets alayhim salam, Nabis one, many are Anbiya alayhim salam. The Malaika, one is a Malak, and many are Malaika. The Awliya, who are the Awliya? The Awliya are the people who reach the high rank in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the later times like Imam Abdul Qadir al-Jilani rahmatullahi ta'ala, the early times, the Sahaba Kiram, they are the Awliya of this Ummah, ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim ajma'in. Also we talk about the A'immah, who are the A'immah, the leaders of the Muslims. Which leaders? The leaders in the early periods, like Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, radiallahu ta'ala, Sayyidina Umar bin al-Khattab, radiallahu ta'ala, and so on and so forth. The people that were responsible for looking after the Muslim Ummah, after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Also the leaders of the Muslims in terms of the sciences of Islam, the scholars of Islam in the early period, like Imam Abu Hanifa, rahmatullahi ta'ala, before his period as well. That we speak about them as well inside Aqidah. But primarily the discussion in this book that we are going to study is going to be about the beliefs regarding Allah and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But Aqidah also is also the study of the knowledge regarding the beginning and the return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What do we mean by the beginning? How did this universe come into being? How did this universe come about? Where did it start from? Aqidah speaks about that. Also, when we die, we believe as Muslims, وَالْبَعْثِ بَعْدَ الْمَوْتِ, that we will be raised up and we will be accounted. Aqidah speaks about that as well. Also speaks about the matters that will happen after the ba'th. After we are taken out of our graves, what will happen? The questioning on the day of judgment, hisab, the mizan, the weighing of the deeds of a person. Aqidah speaks about all of these. Jannah, Jahannam. Aqidah speaks about all of these. All of these things are spoken about. The belief in Allah, the belief in the attributes of Allah, the belief in the Prophets alayhi salam. What must we believe regarding them? The Malaika, the belief regarding the Awliya, the belief regarding the leaders of the early leaders of the Muslim Ummah, how this world began, how it will end, and the matters that will happen afterward. We study all of these in Aqidah according to the principles of Islam. Yep. That's what Aqidah is, the science of the study of the knowledge of all of these matters according to the principles of Islam. What's the aim? That doubts get removed. That any doubts a person may have are removed when he studies Aqidah. And what happens then? He gets conviction. Go back to that word, aqd. Tight as a knot. Tighter than a knot, yep. Binding, agreement, aqd. Something that can't be undone. Yep. This is the science of Aqidah. It removes doubts and it affirms conviction, brings about conviction, affirmation, definiteness inside the person regarding the principles upon which he based his life. Then we spoke about, if people remember, we gave some analogies, two in fact. We gave two examples that you can say that if you look at the actions of a human being, like prayer, fasting as a Muslim, and then you look at the beliefs, how could we understand that in terms of some example in the world? Is the likeness of what? It's like what? Anybody remember? Two likenesses, two examples we gave, what they call similes. One is the example of a tree. Example of a tree. The roots are like the aqaid, and the branches are like the actions, prayer, fasting. Where are all of these things coming from? It's because of our belief regarding Allah and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Quran. Yeah? Our belief regarding all of these matters makes us pray, makes us fast. Because we believe in this, we do this. It's like a tree. The roots are the beliefs, the branches are the actions. Building. What's first? Foundation. What's afterwards? The walls, the roof, and everything else is afterwards. If the foundations of a tree are strong, we get good fruit. If the building is strong, it remains firm. It's not falls down when it maybe a landslide, a lot of rain, a lot of water, the building falls over. Or you get earthquakes, the building falls over. The reality of the human being is that he faces difficulties in his life. If his aqidah is not strong, he'll always be shaky. If his aqidah is strong, he'll go through life firm. Yep, firm conviction and belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We then mentioned that there's a very important thing which I did want to touch upon at the beginning of this lesson, because those who are new will not understand what's going to go forward unless they understand this. And even those who came in the previous lesson, if they never truly understood what we talked about before, they will not understand what we're going to discuss in the next lesson. That was, we said, that when a human being, insan, whether he is a Muslim or a non-Muslim, if he has intellect, if he has aql, when his aql thinks about things, when his mind thinks about and imagines and reflects upon things and their attributes. What do you mean by things? Like a book, a table, a desk, a person, the heavens, the skies, the heavens and the sky, the earth, the stars in the sky, the universe even. These are things, beings, yep, what we call self, a being, a thing. This is a being, a thing, self, it's an existence. You may think it's not being because you sometimes think a being is what? You think a being is a human, yep, or an animal. Here we're talking generally a thing, yep. It is a thing, a being, a self, yep. It has attributes. Let's take this book for example. It's a thing, yep. What's the attributes? An attribute we said is what? Anybody recall? It's a bit difficult, but anybody remember? What is an attribute? It's a meaning that is found with a thing, established with a thing. A meaning, what do we mean? A meaning. Weight, height, all of these things are meanings that exist. So this book, the actual pages, the spine, all of these, the actual book. What are the attributes of this book? It's green. It's A5 size. Yep. Its weight must be a certain amount. Its size, its width is this much, this much. These are all soft or it's hard, it's shiny. All of these are attributes. Like we said, we took the example of one of the children last week, and we said, look, if you look at him, Ali for example, if his name is Ali, if you look at Ali, his actual body and everything, that's his being, his self. What are his attributes? For example, he has knowledge. He has a lot or he has a little. This is a description, isn't it? it's what we call a meaning. There's a meaning found with Ali, and that is he has a lot of knowledge. There's a meaning found with Zayd, for example, he has a little bit of knowledge. Yep. A meaning found with Ali, strong. Meaning found with, Ali, with another person is weak. These are attributes. These are what we call attributes. I'll give you the example of the flower. The flower, the stalk, the petals. These are the dhat. In Arabic it's called dhat, being, the self, the existence of the flower. Smell it. It has a smell. Look at it. It has a color. These are descriptions. These are what we call attributes. These are meanings that exist in the flower. It has a smell. It has a color. It has a certain size. It has a weight. These are what we call attributes. So we're saying when a person, it doesn't matter if he's Muslim or non-Muslim, when he uses his aql, his mind, and he thinks, and he imagines, and he ponders and reflects over things, meaning their existences, their dhat or their being, their self, and also about the attributes, things like height, size, weight, power, strength, weakness, all of these types of things. When he thinks about existences, what we call, when he thinks about the being, self, we can call it the existence of a thing. In Arabic this is called dhat. Dhat. The dhat of something is the being of it, the self of it, its existence, in other words, the thing itself, yeah? Its being, itself, its existence. Sometimes the word essence is used. Whichever word is easy for you to understand, use that word. But know that you could use all of these words. The being of this, the actual being of it, the actual self of it. Then you have things which are called attributes. We said it's a meaning, meanings that exist with a being. So, a meaning which exists with a dhat. So if we said he has a lot of knowledge, that is an attribute that exists with Ali or Zayd or whoever he is. Yep? That would be an example of attribute. The color, the size, the smell, weight, all of these are attributes. Yep? What are the beings? Table, chair, planet, sky, earth. Hopefully it's all understood. It's very important that we understand this. What we're saying is when we human beings use our aql and we think about these and we think about these for anything, we can only make one of three conclusions about that thing and its attributes. We can only make one of three judgments. No third, no fourth, sorry. When we think about things and their attributes, we will make one of three judgments. We will either say that thing or that attribute is what? Number one, wajib. In English we will say necessary. The reason why I'm doing this again is if this is not understood, nothing will be understood properly. That's why we said Imam Ghazali rahmatullahi ta'ala alayhi's teacher, Imam al-Haramain al-Juwayni rahmatullahi ta'ala alayhi, said that whoever does not understand this idea, what we call the rational judgment, whoever does not understand the rational judgment, this is the rational judgment that we're going to talk about now. He said he is not a person of intellect. That's not a rational person. He's not a person of intellect. He's not considered a person of intellect. He can't think properly. In other words, that person's judgments are not going to be right. He's not understood this. And this is why in Islamic history, people have ended up saying wrong things about Allah. Like some have said that Allah could, astaghfirullah, that Allah could be said, that Allah could give birth to a child, astaghfirullah. Or that they have said Allah could lie, astaghfirullah. They said all of these things because they never understood this. They have not understood this. Even though this is the very first thing that when a person studies Aqidah, the scholars, they insist that this is taught first, this is understood first, because the person does not understand this, he has no intellect, really. He is not thinking rationally, he is not thinking correctly. Therefore all his judgments are going to be all over the place. What is a judgment? Is to say that something exists for something else or does not exist. Meaning to attribute, to assign something to something else. Like I said,
that if we said Aftab is sitting, we are saying that sitting is being assigned to Aftab. In other words, we are giving the hukm, we are giving a ruling that sitting is for Aftab, meaning it is existing for Aftab sitting. But then if he stood, they will say Aftab is not sitting. There we will be negating sitting. We will say sitting does not exist for Aftab right now. Yeah? If he was standing. Similarly, if somebody was standing, we say Zayd is standing, and if he's not standing, we say Zayd is not standing. In other words, when we make a judgment, we are either affirming something or denying something about another thing. So two things, we are affirming one thing for the other thing, or we are denying this thing for that thing. Like sitting or standing for a person called Zayd. He is sitting or he is not sitting. We are affirming or we are denying. So when we make a rational judgment, we are affirming or denying certain things about these. We are saying that something is for this or something is not for this. What are those three judgments? That something is either wajib, necessary, yeah, or it is what we call jaiz, also called in Arabic mumkin, in Urdu as well mumkin. And the third is what we call mustahil. Also called in Arabic muhal, impossible. For a moment, ignore the Arabic words. There's a lot of people, when they see Arabic words, they get worried. No, you shouldn't. Look at the English words. Necessary, possible, impossible. For everything that we can think about or imagine, and for every attribute that we could possibly think about or imagine regarding that thing, we will make a judgment that that thing is either necessary to exist, possible to exist, or impossible in existence. And we also judge for every attribute whether that attribute for that thing is necessary for that thing, possible for that thing, or impossible for that thing. In other words, the human mind, when it thinks about being, self-existences, essences, things, in other words, imagines about them, thinks about them, reflects about them, you can either decide that that thing must exist, necessary, or number two, it's possible that it can exist, possible it may not exist, or it will make a third judgment. It will say this thing cannot exist, will never exist, cannot exist, absolutely impossible to exist. Similarly, when you take any possible thing and you think about the various attributes that it could have, you think about attribute meanings, like Ali could be strong, then you will make a conclusion about strength. It's an attribute, strength, height, weight. You make a judgment that strength, weight, or height is necessary, or possible, or impossible for Ali, for example. If you take Ali, we'll say we need to make a judgment. Let's take the pen, this pen as an example, yeah? This pen is a being, a self, an existence, an essence. This pen has various attributes that we can see, and in our minds we may even think about other attributes, and then we'll have to make a judgment about this pen, its being, itself, its existence, its essence, and we'll have to make a judgment about the meanings that can exist with it. So for example, this pen, we'll have to make one of three judgments regarding it. Either this pen is necessary to exist, either this pen is possible to exist, or either this pen is impossible to exist. Also, we'll have to make a judgment about the weight, the height, all the possible qualities, meanings that can exist with it. We'll have to say either those are necessary, they are possible, or they are impossible. Everyone clear on that? Then we need to go a bit deeper into what does wajib mean first, before we make a good judgment. Wajib means necessary. Wajib does not mean wajib like in namaz. That this namaz is wajib, with the wajib. Here wajib means necessary, it must exist. In fact, what does it mean? It means that the human mind says that this thing not existing is impossible. In other words, it must exist, because its non-existence is impossible. A wajib, something which is wajib in Aqidah, is that thing, it must exist. The mind says, we cannot accept that that thing does not exist. We cannot accept that. Someone says, this thing, X thing does not exist, we say that cannot be possible. It must be existing. The only that, the only being or self that is wajib in its existence is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His existence is wajib, necessary. What's the proof of that? Is the universe itself is one of the clear proofs. Because each of these things that we see in our surroundings, at some point they did not exist. And a thing which at some point did not exist must have something which originated it. And that thing which originated it, in other words, created it, brought it into existence, cannot be like the thing that it created. Otherwise we end up in a chain of things which we will talk about in our next lesson. Why that is not right. Why the argument of some people who don't believe in God, atheists, that everything just goes back in an endless chain. This created this, this created this, this created this, and then they say, oh, it doesn't stop. It goes on forever. We're going to show in next lesson how that is irrational, incorrect. Refute it. We're going to refute it from different angles. But first of all, if you look at the universe, everything inside it at some point didn't exist. It indicates it was created and brought into existence. The one who created all of these things, he could not have a beginning. Otherwise he would be like the created things. And then he wouldn't be able to create them. That which is creation doesn't create. Creation, pen, this, me, you, we don't create things from nothing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created everything. And He brought it into existence from nothing. And He is not like His creation. He does not have a beginning, nor does He have an end. He must always exist. His existence being self is wajib, necessary. In other words, our mind says for Him not to exist is impossible. That's what wajib means. That here, I'll just put a note here. That whose non-existence is impossible. What is wajib? That thing whose non-existence is impossible. That for Allah not to exist is impossible. Why? Look, this wouldn't be here if Allah did not exist. This wouldn't be here, but this is here. This being here is clear proof that Allah exists. Allah's existence is wajib, necessary. Let's take now the created thing. This pen at some point did not exist. At some point did not exist. That puts this thing inside this category. Jaiz or mumkin. This thing at some point not existing indicates that this thing was created. And something which is created, it's possible for it to exist, and it's possible for it not to exist. Why is that? Because if at some point this did not exist, this could never have a choice in its existence. This could create itself. How do we know that? Because at some point it didn't exist. When it didn't exist, how could it decide suddenly that I need to exist? At the point when it didn't exist, there was no pen. How do people claim that the pen said, I need to exist, so it made itself exist, when it didn't even exist at that time? That shows what? The pen itself is what? Jaiz or mumkin, possible in existence. Now someone may say, but the pen is here now. So let's clear it even more and give another example, which is an exactly same pen like this. Exactly same pen like this. That is not existing right now. We're going to say that, imagine a pen, think about, in your intellect, reflect about a being. Which type of being? A being that is exactly like this. That doesn't currently exist. Could it exist? Is it necessary for it to exist? Is it impossible for it to exist? Or is it possible? When you think about that, you will say, it's possible it may exist. And it's equally possible it may never come into existence. It can't choose to create itself because it doesn't exist. Right? It can't choose to create itself. Therefore, it needs a creator. It is the creator who decides whether that thing exists or not. If he decides and he wills that it exists, he will bring it into existence. And if he wills that it shouldn't come into existence, then it will never come into existence. But in terms of itself, it's jaiz or mumkin, possible to exist. Is that clear? And every single thing that is created is in this category. Every single thing that we can see in creation that exists and that it is possible for it to exist even though it may not exist right now, that thing is from the category called the possible or mumkin or jaiz. Give an example. The birds that you see, the animals that you see in the zoo or whatever, those things, they fall in this category, jaiz or mumkin. At some point they didn't exist. They are possible that they may exist. When you think about them, it's possible they may exist and possible may not exist. The fact that you see a particular lion, specific lion in the zoo, right in front of you right now, you will say it exists right here. The fact that it exists shows something decided that this lion should exist right now in this shape and in this form, in this time. Who is that? Who decided that? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But another lion like him, that currently in the world doesn't exist, could it come into being? We will say, jaiz, mumkin is possible. Allah wills, it will exist. And if Allah wills that it does not exist, it won't exist. Now, let's take a lion and say, imagine a lion, imagine a lion with 10 wings. Have you ever seen a lion with 10 wings? As far as we know in history, there's never been a lion with 10 wings. We don't know the future. We don't know the future, so we can't make a judgment about the future. Yeah? What we can say is this: is jaiz or mumkin is possible. If Allah wills, He will create a lion and it will have 10 wings. Yeah? If Allah wills. So a lion with 10 wings is what? Possible, jaiz, mumkin. Just because it's not here, it doesn't mean it's not possible to exist. Because it is a thing that if Allah wills, He has the power to create it. So if He wills it exist, it will come into existence. If He wills it does not exist, it won't come into existence. Moving away from this category now, so we've understood this. Everything that is possible to exist, everything that is created is from this category. Yeah? What about this category? Mustahil, impossible. Muhal. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one without any partner. If someone says Allah is plural, astaghfirullah, but there are 2 gods or 3 gods or 4 gods, as some people believe in this world, this would indicate deficiency, defect. If they're saying 2 things created this world, then they are saying that each thing shared inside it, or that one created it and the other was powerless to stop the creation of that world, or the second one was forced to agree. You get all of these deficiencies, defects, and defects and deficiencies are impossible for the Creator because He is perfect, and He cannot resemble creation. Otherwise He would be like the creation, He wouldn't be the one who created everything. So if you imagine now a being or self, imagine and think about a partner to Allah, what will the mind say? Mustahil, muhal, impossible. The human intellect, when it reflects, a partner to the one who created this universe, impossible. Because if a partner existed for the one who created this universe, he would be limited. He would be sharing power. He would be restricted, or he would be forced to accept what the other is saying, or he would be sharing in what the other is doing and willing. And all of these are what we call deficiencies, defects, flaws, imperfections, and they are impossible for the Creator of all the universe. A partner to Allah then is mustahil or muhal, impossible in existence. We give another example. A triangle has how many sides? 3. A square has how many sides? 4. Can a squared triangle exist? The scholars say if you think about it, it's impossible. Either it's going to have 3 sides, then it's a square triangle. If it has 4 sides, it's going to be what? A square. It's either going to be a square or it's a triangle. Night and day existing at the same time in one place, at the same moment, is the 2 impossibilities. Night and day. Either it's night in a place or it's a day in a place. Day and night can't exist in and at the same time, at the same place, at the same time. Another impossibility. Yeah? What's an impossibility? That which the human mind says, this thing cannot exist. When the human mind thinks about it, the being, the self of that thing, that this thing cannot exist. A partner to Allah cannot exist. You understand? We said if you look at anything in this universe, it's either moving or it's still. It's either moving or still. Any created thing. We're not talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're talking about any created thing. Either the created thing is moving or it's still. Yeah? it's necessary for it to be, this is what we call attribute. Because it's a quality, isn't it? It's a description of the thing. The thing is either moving or still. Moving and stillness are what attributes? Meanings that exist with that thing. Movement is a meaning. Yeah? Stillness is a meaning that exists with a thing. Take a human being, can be either moving or still. Yeah? Any object in the universe, if you think about it in your minds, all the objects that exist in the universe, they will have an attribute of either being moving or still. It's necessary for a thing to be either moving or still. It's impossible for a thing, a created thing, for you to say about it, this is not moving and this is not still. Impossible. It must be moving or it must be still. It's also impossible for both at the same time. To be moving and still at the same time is impossible. The human mind rejects that. How can anything be moving and still at the same time? Because if there's any type of movement inside it, even however small, it's moving. Some people argue that wall, that pillar is not still. It's actually moving, because the atoms inside are moving. If that's the understanding of that person, then for him that's moving. And for others from the apparent it's still. Yeah? But it can't be moving and still at the same time. That's impossible. Is that clear? Yeah? This needs to be very, very, very clear. Yeah? Give another example. In this category, what the Christians say about Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam, that he's his son, astaghfirullah, or the creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wal-i'adu billah. That's mustahil, impossible. What's a defect? Allah does not need a son. Allah does not resemble creation. Resemblance of creation is a defect, deficiency, it's a flaw. Allah is perfect. He doesn't have a resemblance to creation. If he resembled creation, he would be like creation. And creation what? Is created. It has a point where it doesn't exist. But Allah is not like that. Allah is free from all the defects and deficiencies of creation that are in creation. A son for Allah is mustahil, muhal, impossible. Talking about attributes, lying is an attribute. Lying is an attribute of what? Speech. The speech of human beings can be truthful or it can be falsehood. If it doesn't match the reality, it's false, it's lying. If it matches the reality as it is, it's truth. That can never, falsehood, lying, can never be an attribute of the speech, the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because it's a deficiency, a defect, and a flaw. Therefore, if somebody says the dhat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in relation to the dhat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the attribute of lying, what is the ruling? When the mind thinks, impossible. Lying is an impossibility in relation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because of deficiency, flaw. And remember what's the definition? The mustahil or the muhal thing is